Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hi-P at Home. We're gonna have some fun today. We got a couple Olympians on with me. As always, I'm joined by Scott Touzinsky. Scotty, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Excited to have Murph on today.
Yeah, and we have 2016 Olympian Murphy Troy, and a Hi-P alum as well. How you doing, Murph?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to be on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you doing this with us, taking the time out to talk to our families and, you know, the millions of listeners we have around the world. Want to spend some time going through your volleyball journey, especially your national team experience and your Olympic experience, but give us an idea of what's going on now in your life.
So right now, living in Orange County, California. Been out here for a while. So I retired from volleyball officially after the Olympics in 2016, and then settled. Got married the same year. A couple months later, settled down here. We're in Costa Mesa, California, right by Newport Beach. Loving it, and been my wife and I have a 1-year-old daughter, Rosie, just turned 1 about a month ago. So that's been a whole different exciting journey that I've been on. And then I've been, I'm actually working for a data and analytics software company. So that's coming up on 3 years now, out here in SoCal.
Awesome. Hear that everything's going well. How is life now? You have a 1-year-old, so I'm sure this is an interesting time for you, but overall, how's quarantine life been for you?
It has its pros and cons for sure. It hasn't been too bad. Some of the nice things, being able to be home a little bit more, especially with a young daughter, has been great. Spending a little bit more time with her. It's been, I've lost track of the weeks now. I don't know what it's been, 6 weeks or something, maybe more. But you get a little stir crazy. But it's been, can't really complain too much. We got pretty good weather here. We're lucky where we can go outside, take walks, and do different things. We've made a couple of trips to the beach when no one's really been around, which has been nice. But overall, we're hanging in there. And now I think everybody's at the point where it's like you just want to go out and do something, right, and see people and hang out with other people.
Are you working from home right now, Murph, or you still got to go into the office?
I'm working from home. You're looking at the home office right now. Got my 2 screens set up and, on the computer doing Zoom calls, doing phone calls, and it's great stuff.
Cool. I want to jump in right off the bat, dude. I know we're gonna go through the from high school at SLUH on up through USC and stuff like that. But I want to, there's a question, and we've talked a lot about this, but I've never asked you this question. Obviously, playing professional overseas is a grind. I did it for a long time, and you did it for a short time, and you flew up the ranks real fast, in my opinion, on the national team. I thought you were the guy that was going to come in and take over Matt Anderson at the opposite position, put him back on the left, and we were going to be flying again like we were right after Rio Olympics. Ultimately, why retired right after, Rio? Of course, I know why of winning, and it's hard to go back and do it more, but you were at the prime of your career, ready to make probably the biggest contracts you've made. You were in Gdansk in Poland, in my opinion, the best country to play volleyball in, and ready to take some huge contracts. So abruptly, why did it end?
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. I was definitely at the peak of my career, and I did feel like I could have kept going a little bit, just in terms of skill set. I was 27, so still relatively young. It was a large decision based off of a number of factors, but a lot of it was lifestyle. And I think, like you said, it can be a grind, and don't get me wrong, like I love the grind. I love playing volleyball, and I still miss it every single day in terms of the competitiveness and having that like as my profession. I definitely miss it. But it, I think there were a couple of big factors. The biggest one was that, I sort of saw myself as going down like one of 2 paths. And it was like, I'm either in this for the long haul, and I, kind of like you did, and I play volleyball and I go until I can't play anymore. Or if I'm ever going to stop, like now's a really good time where I accomplished probably the biggest goal that I've had as a volleyball player ever, and made it to the Olympics and won a medal. And I just sort of felt at some point, I don't know, I've always been this sort of person where I was like most of my, like pretty much starting, especially in college, even in high school, like volleyball focused, but there was always this part of me like, I'll want to do something else eventually, and having other interests and wanting getting started on different things. And I looked at, I just sort of thought of like, I would rather start that a little bit sooner than later in life. But really the biggest thing was more of like the family thing. And it, my then fiance at the time, now wife, were at sort of a juncture where it's like, does she, we got to make a decision where does she come over with me? And then we're in it and we stay and do the volleyball route and move around and potentially, start a family abroad, and do different things, or do we try to stay apart, do the long distance thing, do sort of a half and half, which pretty much wasn't on the table, right? It's sort of like you kind of have to go one or the other, or when is that point where eventually I'll come back, settle down, have kids, and it was definitely a big decision that I probably thought about the last couple of years of my career, and especially as I started to, make more progress with the national team, make more progress professionally, that decision became more difficult. But it also, in a way, it sort of, it did make things easier, kind of. I felt like I didn't really leave anything on the table, even though I'm sure I could have had, a number of more successful years playing. It was nice to feel like I accomplished some really good things that I really wanted to be able to do. I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wanted to play, like you said, in one of the best leagues in the world, have a lot of success there, kind of prove that I could play in that top level. But I think ultimately it just came down to, having, as when you're playing overseas, you miss out on so many things. You miss out on spending time with your family, spending time with your friends. I can't tell you the number of weddings I've had to miss, or birthday parties, even funerals and different things that I just kind of made the decision that, hey, I'm ready at this point in my life. I feel like I've done enough in the volleyball space to like focus on family, focus on a new journey, and kind of leave on a high.
Yep. I've had that question asked to me a couple of times about you, and I'm like, guys, I don't know. I think I know why, and I figured that's pretty much what it was. I applaud you big time, man, of doing that. I had that same thought so many times. Right now is a great time for me to stop. I can get a regular job, or a real job, so they say,
Right.
And then, because what people don't understand is, obviously, we wait so long, and I finished when I was 35 years old. Getting a real job at 35 years old is really, really tough, because most people have already been in the real world since they were 22 after college. Yeah. They have 13 years on you at one position already. They've worked up the ranks where we were working up the ranks in the volleyball world.
Right.
And that's so cool that you just said, hey, I've already done it all. There's really nowhere else, in my opinion, that you could have went. Maybe Russia, in
Right.
the volleyball realm of being at the top. And so applaud you big time, man. That's super cool.
And the other thing, and as you know this too, it's sort of like, I thought about trying to go year by year and say, hey, I'll play another year, I'll get another contract. But it's almost like you really do live your life in 4-year cycles. And it's sort of thinking like, all right, well, I could do this for another 4 years, or it might make sense to get out now. And as there are no guarantees. Like maybe there was a possibility for me to continue to improve, continue to be better, and try to own that opposite position. But at the same time, there's just as much possibility that, Matt continues to dominate on the right. We have so much talent on the left, and there's a new guy that comes in on the right, and all of a sudden the coach is thinking like, hey, it might make sense to get a young guy, some experience. And as we look for the next 4 years after that, so you just never know. And I was just so happy about where things had left off that felt like the right time.
And Murph, we talked a little bit about the end of your career, but kind of want to shift gears and talk about the beginning.
Sure.
You had a pretty promising career in multiple sports in high school. When did you decide that volleyball was what you wanted to do? And when did the Olympics become a reality for you?
So I remember knowing, so my sophomore year in high school, I was still a 3-sport athlete. So I was playing football, basketball, and volleyball. And up until that point in my life, I had always just been kind of like, whatever season it was, that's a sport I was playing, always trying to do different things. For a long time, basketball was probably my favorite sport. But I remember it was really my sophomore year. That was the first year I played on varsity at SLUH. It was actually my first year playing for Hi-P. And I just made a lot of strides, I think, probably athletically in general, but really with volleyball. And I remember at JO's, my 16s year, that's when I remember thinking like, all right, volleyball is my sport. Like, this is the one I'm focusing on. I still played football my junior year after that, and liked it. But I did, it may be a little bit of a stretch to say I had a promising athletic career in other sports as well. I don't think I would have been, even close to the same level in basketball or football. But probably, yeah, end of my sophomore year is when I really kind of homed in on volleyball.
When did it become a real possibility that, a national team in your mind? When did you start really preparing yourself? Like, hey, I think I can make the Olympics. This is what I want to do.
It didn't even enter my mind as a possibility until I remember the summer after my senior year of high school was the first year that that would have been the summer before my senior year of high school, was the first year I did the youth national team. And we did a NORCECA tournament in the Dominican Republic. And I remember one of the coaches there, and I was like 17 at the time or something. And one of the coaches, I remember Sean Patchell, was saying, just something throughout the whole tryout period and practicing together for a few weeks and then going to the Dominican. And he was like, and he almost just sort of said it offhandedly, like, you're a big guy, you got a big arm. You should think about, one day trying to play with the national team. And I was like, I didn't even like really thought of that. I was just thinking at that point, I was only thinking about trying to play in college. I was like, oh, I wonder where I could play. Like, not even really knowing the full college landscape yet. So that was the first time it even entered my mind. And then, for the next, 3-4 summers after that, I kept doing youth national team, junior national team. And then it probably wasn't really till I was, maybe like a junior, senior in college. I think probably my sophomore, junior year, because every sort of step I would make, it wasn't like I was chasing the Olympics from day one. It was more of like, all right, when I was at SLUH, I was like, all right, I want to win a state championship. And then as I got to like my junior, senior year, I was thinking like, all right, I know I want to go play in college. So figuring out where I want to go play. And then when I get to college, like, I want to do as well as I can, maximize what I can do here in college. And then as I started to sort of climb the ladder there, then I would start to think about, all right, well, it's probably my sophomore year, end of my sophomore year in college, where I was like, I definitely want to play professionally afterwards. I want to keep going. I want to see how far I can go, try to get in with the national team. But even at that point, there's just so much, it was the summer after my freshman year was 2008. Scotty, watching you guys win the gold medal in the Olympics and thinking like, man, that'd be so cool to be on that team someday. But especially at that time, you guys were one of the older teams in the Olympics, and thinking like, all right, well, when is that going to be for me? Am I going to be 30? Am I going to be, can I make it when I'm 25? Like, there's just so many things you don't know, and thinking like, when there's only one team and 12 spots that are open, I'm like, well, so much is out of my control. I'm just going to, keep going and see what happens as I get there. I was playing on the junior national team at that point. So, but that's, I was 17, 18. So I think probably, by the time I was a senior in college, I knew that the following year I wanted to try to make a push to get on the national team in whatever, regard that was, which ended up for me being like starting with the Pan Am Cup team, sort of, and trying to get on that sort of A2 squad and eventually work your way up to a travel roster.
Yeah, I think You nailed it, which a lot of people don't realize, I guess, maybe the pipeline to get to the national team. Everybody just thinks, hey, you had a great career, boom, I'm on the national team, you know, and then we're in the Olympics. I mean, there's so many routes that you go through. I love the journey that you had. What was the ultimate deciding reason that you picked USC? You know, I mean, unbelievable school. I think, you know, USC is, in my opinion, is a top 5 volleyball program in collegiate volleyball. You know, being at Long Beach State the last years, coaching there. You know, I always like, man, oh man, we played in the North Gym this past year against you guys and got crushed 3-0. It was a tough one. North Gym is probably the hardest gym I've ever played in my whole entire life, hands down. But people don't know about North Gym. It's the smallest little box with maybe 250 fans inside.
Yeah, maybe.
It's unbelievable. But what was the ultimate reason you picked USC?
It was a few different factors, and it's funny because, yeah, like I said, I mean, even in my, like, going into my senior year, because I think it was like the fall of my senior year when I committed, there are just so many things I didn't really know about these different schools and these different programs. And, you know, especially coming from St. Louis, it's not like we're getting to go watch all these different college programs, you know, like you can watch Mobat play or Lindenwood play, and that's about it. I mean, because even then, you know, it wasn't like those schools weren't playing like the kinds of schools from different coasts and all over. So it's hard to really know like what was a good program besides, you know, what you could read online at that time even. So I took some different college visits, but basically what it boiled down to was like the things that I was looking for in a school. I wanted, you know, I wanted a good volleyball program. I wanted a good academic school, and just sort of a good atmosphere that I liked. It's interesting, like looking back, you know, definitely one of the big things that impacted me was my brother was a football player at Mizzou. He was a really good football player at SLUH, got recruited a few different places, ended up, you know, being a redshirt at Mizzou, and he played there for 4 years, never really like, you know, never was a starter or anything like that, or had any game time. But I remember him thinking about like where he wanted to go and making that decision. And one of the things that he had said to me was like, I would, as you're picking schools, I would make sure you pick a school that you would like to go to, even if you weren't a volleyball player, because you never know what's going to happen with your career. And you want to be at a place that you're going to be happy at for 4 years, like no matter what. And so that really stuck with me. And I remember like when I visited USC, I was thinking like, this is a great like place to be. This is a great school, great environment. You know, they had a great athletic program. And like, you know, let's say tomorrow I blow out my knee and my career is never the same. Like I would enjoy going to school here. Luckily that didn't happen. But yeah, I just felt for me, it's funny because looking back, I remember thinking like, oh, like SC has this great athletic program. I even like went and visited, and it was a program that was sort of on the rise. I mean, we're still kind of low. They had just come off like some bad years, like a really bad stretch where they were just like probably when you were playing there, Sky, they were probably terrible the whole time. And then now they had just got a new coach, and they had gotten a couple good recruits, and it was like, well, they made the MPSF playoffs for the first time in a while, and everybody was so excited. And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to be like a really good team. And some of the other schools that I looked at, I was like, you know, they're not going to have a great athletic program. But it's like at that age, I didn't really know anything. Like I didn't watch the team practice. I didn't watch them play that much really. But we came in with a really good recruiting class my freshman year, so we were able to turn the program around and had a lot of success while I was there.
Let's shift gears a little bit back to your national team experience. And you guys both kind of brought up something that I'm interested in. You know, the team selection process leading into different tournaments, especially the Olympics. You know, I've never been in that gym as a player. What is that like with all those guys in the, you know, leading up to the team selection process? You know, the competitiveness, the competition. Is there? What is it like leading up to this selection of the final 12 players?
I mean, it's interesting. I think one of the things that people don't really realize is that it's not like a static process at all. It's just this constantly moving and changing thing of being like the national team. And like from the day that I, first set foot with some on the court with some of these guys in like 2011, it's not like, all right, well, from this period to this period, this is where we'll be evaluating the team and who's going to make the roster. It's just sort of like, all right, this big group of guys this is our national team. And today, these, 12 are our top 12, and we're going to spend the most time maybe towards the end of practice, these guys playing against each other and moving, from those 12, there are probably going to be another 6 or so, let's say, that are kind of in the mix and getting plugged in and out and substituting in different drills. And it's just sort of, there's so much of, trying to figure out what your role is, especially when you first start. And especially if you're not, sort of cemented in that inside group. And even, I would say, and Scott, I'd love to hear what your perspective is too. When I was there, some summers it was easier to tell who was in that 12. Sometimes it was more of like, all right, well, I know that these 6, 7, 8 guys maybe are pretty solid, and the rest, there's like a lot that could change. And so every day you're just sort of going in and trying to show what you can do. You're trying to see how you can fit in with the team. You're trying to, kind of prove yourself on a daily, every single day. And so by the time that the Olympics, comes around, I remember the Olympic summer definitely does have a different feel to it, especially because what's on the line. It's getting down to the wire. And still to this day, that like the day that we got told, like, hey, this is the Olympic roster, like you're going, was like one of the most emotional days of my life, because as it gets close to decision time and you're kind of on the edge, every day just becomes like you feel like it's a competition, which it is, but like, like it's a big match that you're gearing up for. And it's a lot of it is just sort of unspoken. It's it's understanding, where do you think you are? How can you read between the lines to where you think the coach thinks you are, and what you can do to try to better that position for yourself. What do you think, Scott?
No, I agree, man. The way I talk about it, and you're exactly right, I think there's about 6 to 8 guys that are cemented. Like they know they're going from, year or two before the Olympics even happened. They've already bought their tickets and their families, and hotels and everything like that. And the last 4 to 6 guys, 8 guys are on the fence, and they have no clue until literally, like Murph said, the day that you're told that, and like all that stress is just off of your back. The way I always relate to it is, especially in men's volleyball, you really get the feel of the importance of a role. Like, the guys who are the 4th, 5th, myself, I was like one of the last, even the last guy picked, but I played a way different role than anybody else on the volleyball court, and I prepared so much differently than everybody else. And same with Murphy, It's amazing how you learn how to really embrace your role. And like Murphy said, like every single day you're in the gym, it changes. You could literally be playing 5 days straight and not even get on the court for 6 in a row. It just ebbs and flows, and it's just crazy to even feel the differences like in practice every single day. It's the wildest thing. But I think that really builds you as a volleyball player, and it really helps you when you go to your professional team overseas, that you take nothing for granted whatsoever. I think what Murphy really, related to and really brought me back to the process of is, I can remember the day that I was told, that I made the Olympic team, and tell us about when you were told. Where were you, and what the feeling, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna mention it's because it's an interesting story, because it was so it was the summer of 2016, and they don't have to name their roster until I think it's a month before. I think it's only like 30 days before. And so the plan was to sort of wait as long as they can, because one of the other difficulties was that for every tournament before the Olympics, you're limited to 12 spots. And by that point, every other tournament, and I think this was a newer thing, we were traveling 14 because we were allowed to, and which is, better for the team because you have a little more flexibility. You can move some guys in and out, but the Olympics is very set because they're like, we don't want to we want to limit the number of athletes per team so that we can include more sports in the competition. So because every person that they add is there's a limit on all that stuff. So anyway, so they're like, all right, we have to get it down to 12. We're going to wait till the last minute. And we were about a month away from that. So we were this was probably 2 months ahead of the Olympics. I think it was in June. And we were actually in Brazil for another tournament for World League. And all of a sudden we had a team meeting we had a team meeting every day. We're expecting that we were going to talk about the match coming up or video or whatever. And all of a sudden Coach Sproul was like, hey, you guys are, we're doing something a little different today. I know we're not supposed to announce the team for another month. And at that point too, like, especially guys on the fringe, you want to know, but you also want as much time as you can to play well, prove yourself, kind of cement your spot. At that point, I was backup opposite to Matt Anderson. And he's like, but, we decided it's better if we name the team today, right now, and give the team more, that extra month to sort of come together, these 12 guys, before we go back to Rio again for the Olympics. So he goes, so none of us knew they were naming the team today. And he's like, yeah, so we're doing this today. We're going to start one-on-one meetings starting in 10 minutes. Murphy, you're up first. And he sent out the list and everybody's name on there was at the top of the list. And all of a sudden I just my heart was pounding and I was like, if I was a coach, I would probably want to get the bad news over with first and then tell everybody else the good news. So I was like, you're just so many different things you're trying to read in. And one of the tough things at the time, like I said, we had a ton of talent on the left. We had a lot of good outsides, one of which being, both of our former teammates, Reed Pretty, who was going for his 4th indoor Olympics after coming off of a torn ACL 2 years before. And he was playing great. But we also had, 4 other really good outsides. And part of my thought process was like, well, what if he really wants Reed on the team, but he also really wants these young guys to get experience, and he brings Reed in as a backup opposite, and I'm out. You just start thinking about all these different scenarios. But so at that 10 minutes, I was definitely kind of panicking a lot. And I remember texting my wife at the time, like, they're naming the team right now. Like, I'm first up. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But they called me into a room, and like the second I walked in, I was like, Murphy, congratulations, you're going to the Olympics.
I love it. I love it, man. What people don't understand is it's not just you, right? I mean, you have your parents asking you all the time, your fiance is asking you all the time, can we book plane tickets? Especially both of us were super young when we were on the Olympic team, and you don't have a lot of money. And so you got all this money that you have to spend for, plane flights and hotel rooms and all this stuff. And you can't just, spend $10,000 and not expect to get that back, and you're out and you don't make it. So that's, gives me goosebumps, man. It's super cool story.
How did they tell you?
Yeah. So we were actually in World League as well. We took the same exact team every single week, 7 weeks straight to World League. And we were in week 6, actually. And so we had won every single match, luckily, along the way. And we were already guaranteed to go into World League finals, actually in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And we were in Wichita, Kansas, waiting to play our first match. And before the night one of the 2 matches back-to-back, he brought everybody in as a group. Didn't even do individuals, as a group. And he's like, hey, guys, I just want to let you know before we go into this match, this is going to be the team that we take to the Olympics as well. And we're all just like looking around like, oh my God, like this is unbelievable. And like we said before, 8 or 9 of the guys already knew that they were going. They had already booked plane tickets, and hotel rooms. It was really, myself and Kevin Hansen and Sean Rooney were kind of the bubble guys, more me and Kevin Hansen. And it was just like, I think that was the best time we ever spent in the box in our whole entire life. It was a blast. And then of course, night 2, we won. The first night we were already guaranteed, no problems. We got to play that last night. It was awesome. Best I think we've ever played in our whole entire lives.
Hey, Murph, want to stick with your national team experience a little bit. Reed actually did a Zoom with our club and told a story about that Olympic experience, and really, really an awesome story. And I thought it was a great story for our kids and our families to hear as well. I always like to hear, I think this is a two-part question, or there's two parts to this. I always like to hear who people's favorite teammates were during that experience, because I think you definitely bond with certain, even though you have experience, you definitely bond with certain people. But when I told one of your former teammates that I was going to be talking to you, he said, ask him why he is always coming in so hot. He said I'd get a good chuckle out of that one. But yeah, I just want to know, do you know who said that? And who are some of your favorite teammates from that experience?
I mean, there probably could be a lot of people that said that. I wonder who that was, though. Was it was it Dustin Wadden? Could have been a lot of people, actually.
It was Dustin Wadden.
That's so funny.
Good shot.
I mean, it's hard to name. It's hard to name. I mean, I'll say through the Olympic experience. It's funny because Reed is just, you guys talk to him, Scotty, you know him super well. He's such an incredible guy. Not only as a volleyball player, he's had an unbelievable career, but just like the things that, just him as a person, things he's done off the volleyball court, even now, transitioning to the beach and doing different things. He's just such a unique person, and how hardworking, resilient, and the number of different talents that he has. But throughout that last summer, Reed was my pepper partner too, which is it's a special relationship for sure. So it's fun. A funny story about Reed is how we used to pepper every day. And like I mean, he's the oldest guy on our team at that point. And I like to pepper hard. I was always that kind of guy. Like, I'm not just there to kind of groove it in. Like, I want to get after it, like dive on the ground, get sweaty. And he did too, which was awesome. But we would always kind of like, as we're just getting started, we would always like throw in, the ball comes to you, and instead of just passing it with your platform, you bring your foot out and try to kick it. And it's just sort of we would almost treat it as like a calibration test, like to see how on our reflexes were, and be like, oh yeah, we're on today, let's go. First match of the Olympics, we're playing against Canada, who we're supposed to beat, and it's sort of like, it was almost like a must-win match for us in our pool because of how stacked the rest of our pool was. But it's like, as long as we took care of business against Canada, we're fine. We end up playing terribly. We lose the match 3-0. Like, it was bad. But one of the points of the match, Reed comes in off the bench, try to spark a little energy. And I remember there was this play where he's in the back row, whoever was, hits a ball off the block, comes in, and it should be like kind of an easy cover. It comes right to Reed, but for whatever reason, he kind of goes with his foot, like we had been doing during pepper, and completely like whiffs it. And, the ball just drops. And it's just this, coaches were like, what are you doing? Like, why wouldn't you just pass the ball? Why are you going for the foot? And we just kind of laughed about it after, because it's like, what is that stupid thing that we do every day? Ended up costing us a point in the match. So Reed was definitely probably one of my favorite teammates to play with. I mean, it really was a ton of guys. The other funny one that I'll say, especially because we're here with Scott, is David Lee, because he was my roommate. He was my roommate in Rio for the Olympics, and the last, probably a lot of World League as well. And he's just a hilarious guy. But he was so good to play with. I mean, he had such a long, great career, so many different teams, like success at so many different levels. But he's just, he's one of a kind. Everybody calls him the spaceman for a reason. He's always thinking about something different, doing something different than everybody else, always out there in space. But he was probably one of my favorite guys as well.
Reed is a unbelievable dude. What people don't realize about Reed is that he's all in on anything that he does. I mean, we all know Reed right now on the beach scene, and Reed has like 8 dudes on staff right now. I mean, he's got his own freaking RV. Like, the dudes, I mean, if somebody says Reed can't do something, Reed will do it, and he'll blow it out of proportion. He's unbelievable. And I remember watching him pepper. I always pepper with Rich Lamborn, and Reed got after it, and I was super stoked to see him in that 4th Olympics. So you played in Italy, and you played in Poland. Obviously, what's the favorite place that you played in and why? I've got like a love-hate on these questions overseas because there's 1,000 different reasons. Did you get paid? Did you get paid on time? With the food, whatever, where you live,
Right.
apartments. But what was your favorite place to play? I think I already know the question, or the answer, but where's the favorite place?
Mine was where I played in Poland. It was in Gdansk. I mean, and for a few reasons. And like you said, there are so many different factors. But it was an awesome city. It's a great country for volleyball. The league there was good, and the fans there just love volleyball. And I had a great coach there for 2 years. We played in this great arena. And yeah, it was just a number of different things. It's a great city to live in, and I had great teammates. Like the biggest thing is do you like kind of where you live? Do you like your teammates, and do you like going to work with them every day? And it was great.
Yeah, it's a cool place to play, man. We played World League finals there in that arena, and the Ergo Arena, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And a super cool place to play. How many fans do you guys get there?
So we averaged about like 4,000 or 5,000 a match, which was pretty good. But the stadium fits 10, and we sold it out a couple of times. Like when we played like the top team in the league, or we hosted the Polish Cup there, which we won my first year when I was there, and it was awesome. The place was cranking.
That's a cool spot, man.
Hey Murph, let's take it way back. You mentioned that you joined up with High Performance as a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the club is way different now in terms of its structure and the size and everything else. Take us back, kind of your experiences, who your coaches were. That experience helped you get to where you all USC in the Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. So that was, it was my first year playing for Hi-P, and I was on the 16 ones, or we were 16 orange or something, and we were coached by Vince Reynolds and Frank Buggs. And it really was, not just saying this because I'm talking with the Hi-P guys, but it really was like a very transformative experience for me. I've always said this, the people that made like the biggest difference on my volleyball career were the people at Hi-P, because it was at a point, like I said, I mean, sophomore year in high school, I was just sort of playing every sport, and it was the first time where volleyball to me, like, it's not necessarily that I just took it more seriously, but I felt like I was getting great coaching and getting exposed to more things in the game and playing with great players. And it just kind of, it opened up a new world for me, for volleyball. And, that Scott Meebrewer wasn't my coach directly then, but, he's as I'm not sure if he's still called the Godfather, but, we called him the Godfather back then, because he's just kind of always present. And I had him as my head coach for the next 2 years after that. But, he's somebody that always, like, I once I got in the Hi-P program, that's where I was like really pushed as a volleyball player, where I was, able to play with great players, but also, like I said, coaches that would say, okay, well, yeah, you can do this now, but why can't we get you here and doing this and thinking about different parts of your game and learning, there's, as Scotty probably knows more than anybody with such a long career, there's so many different parts of the game that you're always learning about. It's such a nuanced sport, that as a 16-year-old, before that, you're just, bump, set, spike, and try to hit the ball hard. And then you get opened up to this cool world of like learning these different techniques and strategies and, how to deal with different situations. So, that's kind of where it all began for me.
You brought up one of my favorite people. Scott's also one of my favorite people, Frank Buggs. Actually got to watch the 2011 Final Four with Frank. Love him, miss him. Hope he's listening. Hope he comes back to St. Louis. I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us a good Frank story.
Oh my God, there's so many good Frank stories. I mean, just just the, one of the first things that visually comes into my mind when somebody says Frank Buggs is him running onto the court, hands waving in the air, time out, time out, time out, and but he was hilarious. He would be like, he would always get on somebody if they weren't, communicating enough, and if they weren't like calling for the ball or calling for their set. And I remember there's a guy on our team that wouldn't whatever it was, saying mine loud enough or calling for a HUD or whatever it was, but Frank would say, I can't hear you, say it again. And then he would say it louder, I can't hear you, say it again. And he literally, to where his like face is red and he's screaming and he's like, say it again. But no, Frank, I love Frank. And I haven't seen him in too long, but like you said, yeah, he flew out to see me in a couple of Final Fours, and was a huge part of my volleyball journey.
There's same with me, man. Growing up, that's like what really instilled the volleyball player I was. Obviously, you learn from John Sparrow and some of the best coaches in the world. With our kids going through what they're going through right now, of not being able to play the sport that they love, I think you can probably agree with me that if this happened to us when we were 17, 18 years old, I don't know what we would do. I mean, it was such a big part of our life, volleyball, and to be able to have it ripped out of our, right now, and not even be able to play high school volleyball, at SLUH County, I mean, it's crazy right now. What is the thing, the main thing that you really, prided yourself on? I always talk about attitude, communication, effort. Those are like my three things that you can control. But like, what's the main thing that if you're talking to a kid right now and say, if you want to get to playing in college and playing the Olympics, you have to do this?
I mean, my biggest thing was always effort. And, I guess it'd be two things. It'd be like, the thing, effort and being a good teammate. Like you alluded to it when you talked about the role that you have to play on a volleyball team. And I was the same. I was in a very similar position to you, where I was, I felt like one of the last probably two guys that made the Olympic team. And one of the reasons I felt was because, ever since I was a young age, and I forget when and where, but it was some tryout process and the number of sports I played. And I remember one of the coaches saying, like, all things being equal, we're always going to look for guys that can make the team better. If you and another player are just as good talent-wise, who's making their team better, putting the team in a position to win is because ultimately that's why you're there. You're there to win and help the team win, whatever role that can be in. So I was always trying to do that. Any team I was on, it's funny, the thing that Dustin brought up, like ask him if he's coming in hot. Him and I, he kind of started it really, was this little sort of funny thing that we did before every match, every World League match. You have the guy who's sort of the low guy on the totem pole that brings in all the jerseys, passes them out to the different teams. And we started doing this, every time we pass them out, like we do a little jersey introduction, being like, coming in hot from St. Louis, Missouri, played at Long Beach State, number 6, Scott Touzinsky, and like throw it out. And then it just sort of evolved over time to like doing these different things. And, small things like that, like just, finding ways to bring the team together was something that I always try to do. But if, even dial it back further, if you said like one thing, literally the one thing that I think I carried with me on every team I was on, from Hi-P to SLUH to SC to the national team to even my different professional teams, was really like how I peppered, because I always wanted to pepper hard. And I think that's something that like anybody who plays volleyball knows. You go into practice, every team in the world that plays volleyball peppers, the different names for it in different languages, but we've literally seen it, that's how you start a volleyball practice. It's just, there's really no other way to get loose, to get your groove going. But I always saw it as like, it's more than just getting my shoulder loose and getting my blood going. It's such a great opportunity to get better at every different skill and try different things. I mean, even when I was like, you're learning how to do a good tip without showing it too soon. Like do that during pepper, learning how to pancake a ball, do that during pepper, you know, whatever it is, you want to work on your platform when it's on the left side of your body versus the right. You can, anything on a volleyball court besides blocking, you know, you can do during pepper. So I would always push my pepper partner to say, all right, we're going to get after it. You know, I'm going to make you die for balls. You're going to make me die for balls. So that's, and I, you know, I think it paid dividends. I think it's, you know, something that kind of helped me, and it just, you know, sets the tone for every practice. Like all of us know that have played volleyball, how easy it is to get into a volleyball practice and just kind of, you can go through the motions, or you're not feeling it that day, you know, you're tired or whatever, and the drill's not going your way. You hit a few balls out. It's like, well, you know, there's always tomorrow. It's like, yeah, but you know, we have this time today. So like, let's get after it.
I love it, man. Cary and I have talked about this numerous times of, you know, there's a right way and there's a wrong way of playing pepper. You know, everybody does it, and do it the right way. It's a choice. And if you're going to do it the right way, I mean, if I wish, and this is what I always wish, that all these kids could be in a national team gym. And if they saw how hard national team players pepper on a daily basis, I mean, it is not, you know, pull your hand down here and like I always say, and hit it over to your partner. It is literally, you warm yourself up to 50 to 60 to 70 to 80 to 90, and you are thundering volleyballs at each other. And when you get into a game, it's natural. You know, like I've been doing this every single day for the past, I don't know how many years, and it becomes routine, and not through going through the motions aspect, but routine of getting better every single time you step on the court. Murphy, dude, great catching up, man. I'm out of questions, bro. What can I say?
Yeah, Murph, we really appreciate you taking the time. Hope everybody stays safe and healthy. And next time you're in St. Louis, please stop by and see us.
Yeah, we'll do. No, thanks for having me, guys. This was great. Like you said, Scott, it brings back all the feels. I feel like I'm ready to go. Jump on the volleyball court. Let's get it going.
That's why I started with that question, dude. You can't stop that early, man.
I know. I made a mistake. I need to get back out there. I'm going to call Sprawl right now.
I'm sure you can still do it too, dude.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Likewise. Thanks. Have a good one.
All right. Bye. And we're out. That was awesome, Murph. Really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Thanks, Murph. Mission, man. Next time I'm in Cali, I'll hit you up for sure.
Yeah. Let's do it. Likewise, when I'm back in St. Louis, whenever I can make it back. I don't know. We'll see.
I know. I hear you.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks.
Later, Murph. See you, bud.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Tell Scott I say hi when you see him.
Will do.